Hello and welcome to the Sunday Morning Cornerman podcast. On this episode of the SMC, we'll discuss all the relevant fights of both UFC 224 and Bellator 199. I'm your host, John Franklin. I am joined by editor-in-chief of MMA Today, Tony Fagnano, writer and host of MMA Across the Pod, another MMA Today podcast network podcast, Ben Smith, and a writer and podcaster whose work you can find all over the site, The Bum Rush, Tough Guys Podcast, Sparring Sessions, and of course her fantastic writing. I'm speaking, of course, of Isha Chanel. Hey guys, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
All right, so I took the liberty of ranking the fights of the night in order of importance, but not based solely on promotion, so we'll be jumping back and forth. And as everything else in the podcast network typically goes, I'm sure you all will hate my order, and I expect to hear from you when you do. So let's start with the main event of UFC 224. It was a bantamweight title fight between champion Amanda Nunes and challenger Raquel Pennington. It went the distance, although it did not go to distance. It was a fifth round KO, but you could argue it should have not even been in that round. The champion retained her title in dominant fashion, again KOing Pennington. Tony, let's start with you. Should the fight have gone 5 rounds, and who is to blame for it going that far?
No, it definitely shouldn't have. When your fighter, it tells you, I don't have anything left, I'm done, you need to heed them. And especially when it's someone like Raquel Pennington, who we know as this like really tough, just like full of heart, kind of fighter, not someone who's going to quit easily. That's really telling. And she had the broken nose. There's the possibility she couldn't even breathe through that. That might have been causing her problems. And we see it in boxing all the time where the trainer, coach, whatever, cornerman will step in and throw the towel in. We saw Nick Diaz do it for his brother Nate. That's the last time I can remember it in a notable like MMA fight, honestly. And it's kind of sad that it takes a family member being in your corner to actually stop the fight. It shouldn't have to be like that. And it definitely should not have been in the 5th round. We saw a brutal ground and pound finish that was just totally unnecessary. Honestly, shame, the Game of Thrones gif, shame
Yeah.
on her coaches, shame on her trainer, shame on this cornerman, man.
All right, Ben, let's move over to you. We'll talk about the fight itself. What did you like that you saw from the champion? Seemed to me like she was effectively using her leg kicks. Pennington pushed her in a way I haven't seen her push too much, except for someone we'll get to later, which would be Alpha Cat Zingano. What did you like from the champ? What did you see in there?
It's a downfall for many, but I liked the patience. I think Nunes could have finished it earlier if she really wanted to, but I think she was patient. Didn't really want to underestimate Pennington, and just took her time with it, really. I think she knew that the finish was eventually going to come. She stuck to her boxing, circled away when needed to. Just solid without being spectacular.
A couple notes from this fight that I wanted to bring up a little bit earlier, but we'll get to them now. 546-day layoff for Pennington. Just to give you guys some perspective, that was when Conor McGregor beat Eddie Alvarez. Same card. That's how long it's been since Pennington was in the cage. First time she's ever been knocked out. Isha, let's go over to you. Who should Nunes fight next? Cyborg? Alpha Cat? What's next? What should be next for the champ?
I honestly think a fight against Amanda Nunes would be good. It's in the favor of the UFC. To no surprise, wow, she's fighting for another, or she's defending her belt again. I don't think anyone would be as surprised at that. So for Amanda Nunes, and if you think about the the division right now, as far as Kat Zingano's lost, since she's been back, and then she has a fight that's booked, or that's already booked that she's going to have soon. Do I think that's title contention? I'm not sure. And then we have Holly Holm and then Megan Anderson that are going to fight, and I know Megan Anderson's making her debut, but then again, she was already supposed to fight Chris Cyborg at UFC 214, so however the UFC wants to look at that, in my opinion, that's not going to be a surprise there either, especially if Megan Anderson wins against Holly Holm. It's just kind of someone they can finally, put a focus on, as far as what we know, how they promote fighters and prospects that they really like. If she loses, I honestly have no idea. I just feel they wouldn't have a choice. But I think as far as fans go in the UFC, it would just be more apparent in their favor just to make a super fight between her and Cyborg. Because I personally would want to see that fight. Cyborg has 2 more fights on her contract, and she's already said, after she does this, she wants to move in the avenue of boxing, which I personally feel she would be successful in as well. So why not go out with a bang and fight Amanda Nunes, and you have 2 fights or 2 belts on the line? So it's kind of a win-win for the fans and the UFC, in my opinion. So.
All right, boys, before we move on, I'll throw it over to you just real quick, Tony and Ben. Tony first. So Cyborg, Kat Zingano, or someone else?
I'm usually not in favor of super fights, but they're going to do that whole featherweight tough season. So that's going to take a little bit. Who is Cyborg going to fight in the meantime? Might as well I think this is the right time to make that fight. And honestly, I don't really see any chance of Nunes beating her. So it's good because it's not going to clog up either division. You won't have I don't think there'll be a two-weight division, two-weight divisional champ in Nunes. I don't think she has any chance of beating Cyborg.
All right, Ben. So Cyborg, Kat Zingano, someone else. What do you think?
Again, I hate to be boring and go with everyone else, but it's just got to be Cyborg. There's only so much you can hype this fight up and hype the prospect of it up without it actually happening. It's going to get to the whole Joshua Wilder situation in boxing where it's just getting rather boring and tedious. As already said, 2 fights left. Running on limited time. It's no better time than the present.
Yeah, I think it gives an opportunity for if somebody's going to beat Cyborg that would be your champion instead of she loses to Kat or something like that. All right, let's move on to Bellator where Isha was at last night. The light heavyweight champion Ryan Bader defeated King Mo in a heavyweight Grand Prix. 15 seconds into the first round. Not much technical analysis comes with a fight like this. But Ben, I'll ask you this question: is Ryan Bader peaking or is King Mo bottoming out?
Bit of both. I mean, I don't want to say Mo's dead. He's obviously not literally, but he's not dying as a fighter as such. He's just mixed bag really. But yeah, I think going into it, Bader was the only one you could really look at where he is look, this is a guy in his prime and he's fresh and he's getting the results now, whereas obviously most of the Grand Prix are past names as such.
Yeah, Isha, you were in the building last night. Talk about the mood in the building when King Mo got put to bed.
It was insanity, honestly. 15 seconds. I pretty much dropped a pen and I picked it up and looked up. The freaking fight was over. It was unreal. And then I heard the cheers from the crowd and stuff. I met King Mo the day before at the weigh-ins and got this really amazing pep talk. And, deep down, I was rooting for him to, at least go in there, given his last fight against Crow Cop. And, I personally thought he was winning that fight. And then, once they got to the last round, it was just rather unfortunate. So I don't know. But then I've also been a fan of Bader. Was I surprised a little bit? And he was as well, because he got to talk at the post-interview. Or someone asked him in the post-interview if he was actually surprised that he beat King Mo in 15 seconds, and he said yes. But apparently on Twitter, King Mo gave praise to Bader, so that was awesome, and Bader gave praise back, said 18 years and, kind of gave him props and things. But King Mo basically confirmed that he wants to move to middleweight, so he doesn't want to stay in that division, but he knows Bader is basically the real deal. And I feel personally, as far as Bader being in the UFC and everything that was going on with that, and then him moving up to Bellator, I think ever since he's been to Bellator, he's just kind of more bloomed as a fighter. And I feel this is the true Bader. And he's just, he's done nothing but improve. And just last night, it just showed that damn, because I don't think anyone really expected that to happen, especially so fast. But I don't know, the crowd and everything, it was just really positive, and people appreciated King Mo. Like when he was walking out, people were clapping for him and stuff. So it was special, but it's nice that, you know, they can both be professional and still appreciate each other. But yeah, I'm still, you know, a fan of both, and I'm pretty sure everyone is too.
Absolutely. All right, Tony. So Ish talked about it for a second there. King Mo going to middleweight. You can touch on that if you want to. Let's talk about what's up next for Bader. Matt Mitrione, really the first legit heavyweight Ryan Bader might be facing. Number one, do you think that that Ryan Bader is the only fighter in this Grand Prix who's in his prime? And then how do you think he matches up with Matt Mitrione?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt he's the only fighter in his prime. I think the UFC gave up on him way too early. He's 25-5. His only loss is John Jones. 2011, Tito Ortiz, who was still very much capable. 2012, Lyoto Machida, obviously still very good back then. Glover Teixeira and Anthony Rumble Johnson. You know, comes over to Bellator, has that kind of – him and Phil Davis already fought before. They just – I don't know. Their styles just don't mesh. So that was not a good Bellator debut. Even though he won, it just wasn't a great fight. Didn't win him any fans. But ever since then, man, knocking guys out now. Back-to-back KO wins for him. You know, at just 34 years old. It's pretty young for a light heavyweight or a heavyweight, I guess, in this tournament. So yeah, I think the matchup with Mitrione is really intriguing to me. It's probably the most high level matchup. It is the most high level matchup we're going to get in this, with Chael and Fedor on the other side. You know, Mitrione, another guy that, you know, UFC might have given up on a little bit too early. Still very capable. A true heavyweight, though. I mean, the guy is huge, former NFL player. You know, huge knockout power to go along with some, you know, great wrestling. So, wrestling defense, I mean, that you know, maybe didn't show up versus Roy Nelson, but he's shown it in the past. I don't know how it's going to look for Bader. It's really interesting to me, though. And then as far as King Mo goes, I think the move down to middleweight is good for him. He's kind of getting up there, and he's only got so many more cracks, you know, at titles and whatnot. And the Bellator middleweight division is kind of thin, so I think that's where he should go.
You know, I'm weird. I've always thought that as guys get older, they should drop in weight just to keep themselves fitter and not end up just being this, you know, fat heavyweight that you know, or whatever upper. I don't like guys going up in weight as they get older. So I agree with you 100%. I will say a couple of notes thanks to Mike Bond of MMA Junkie, who did some post-event facts. So it's first time Bader's ever fought a heavyweight. He was successful, 10-1 his last 11 fights, like Tony said. Only losing to Anthony Johnson. Lawal is 2-3 in his last 5, and all 4 of his career stoppage losses have been by knockout. So obviously, King Mo and Ryan Bader are trending in different directions, which is something we'll get to later. Joining us, surprisingly, is former co-host or current co-host of Sunday Morning Cornerman, TJ Craig. TJ, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. So listen, we've already talked about Nunes and Pennington. We've already talked about King Mo and Ryan Bader. Give us your thoughts on those 2 fights real quickly, and then we'll keep rolling. What'd you think?
Ryan Bader, I'll start off with that one with King Mo. I mean, he looked really good. He said he was healthy coming into the fight. I talked to him up on the ramp at the airport, and he said he was feeling really good with this camp. Everything was coming together, and he felt like it was one of the best camps he's had in a long time. So he looked good. He was ready. Came in that left hand, so he was performing really well. Moving on to Amanda Nunes and Raquel Pennington. We were talking about this last night. It didn't seem like Raquel just didn't show up to the fight early on. She was standing right against the cage the whole time. It almost looked like something was going on. I didn't know if she was trying to bait Amanda in, but there wasn't a lot of movement. Like, she just didn't show up for a championship fight that night. And you know, everything coming into the 4th, going into the 5th round, of course. She just didn't seem like she was in it the whole time.
All right, sounds good. Let's move back to the UFC. We have Kelvin Gastelum versus Jacare Souza. Gastelum won a split decision. Tony, let's start with you. The fight seemed to be Kelvin's when I was watching it, but Jacare looked better on the stat sheet. So is that one of those things where you can't, judge a fight by the stat sheet? Or, did you agree with Kelvin getting his hand raised?
Yeah, no, I definitely scored those last 2 rounds for Kelvin. The first round obviously went to Jacare. His gas tank, I think, if his gas tank was any better, that's definitely his fight to lose there. But man, he really tired out at the end, getting dropped in the second, and then barely. His corner had to come save him. He was like wobbling and almost falling over at the end of round 2. I don't know if that was exhaustion or him just still being rocked from being dropped earlier. But I don't have a problem with the decision at all. I honestly thought Jacare was going to win it because it was in Brazil, as I think a lot of other people did. But the stats, if you look back at them, there was the takedown. I think Jacare got the takedown in the what was it? In the third and final round, Jacare got the takedown, and Gastelum slightly outstruck him. So that was a very close round. You could give Jacare rounds 1 and 3, and it would be a tough argument for me to make, against him. But it is what it is, and that's how at least I scored it. I thought Gastelum did more damage over those last 2 rounds as well, so I'm going to give that in his favor.
It's interesting. I talked to my 5-year-old son about this because he loves fights, and he asked me because Jacare had a takedown, and then Gastelum sat Jacare on his ass, and I was telling my kid, I think that the knockdown's more relevant than the takedown, just in my opinion. So, you could argue for a 10-8 round on a knockdown. It'd be harder to argue for a 10-8 round with only a takedown. So this is the kind of deep conversations me and my 5-year-old have. But so he's looking at me like, okay, Dad, I'm 5. Just yes or no. So Ben, let me kind of piggyback off what Tony said. I like Kelvin's pace. I liked his patience. He said he thought Jacare seemed more tired than he was. You think Jacare brought a championship gas tank into the octagon last night?
No, but I think it certainly showed heart. I'm glad Tony elaborated in the end that it would be hard to argue against, because I actually gave the fight to Jacare myself for the output in round 3. Rounds 1 and 2, clear as day. Nobody's going to argue against them. It was the third round. It was really a pick 'em. You couldn't really argue either way. It was bound to be a split decision, you'd think. No, the gas tank really wasn't there, but he sort of released his inner Barboza in that fight. In round 3, despite the gas tank being dead, he just kept on walking forward, kept on throwing. And I thought Gastelum had finished in round 3 after he looked in round 2, but at the end of round 2. But he just kept on marching forward, kept on landing some pretty powerful shots. I certainly think it didn't decrease his stock at all. I think he can leave somewhat happy with his performance, if I'm being honest.
TJ, what did you see? We knew it was going to be close before they even called it. What did you see there? Did you have it? Which way did you have it, and what did you think as far as the performances went?
I had it for Gastelum, and the only reason, I think when you watch a fight, your eyes are a little bit deceiving, right? So I agree that Ronaldo he definitely lost some of his gas tank going into the third round. And when he was that tired, he just looked sluggish. And I think when you're watching the fight from the outside and you start to see that, it almost goes down on their stock of what they're doing inside the fight. And I think Gastelum just looked a little bit more. He looked like he was gassed a little bit, but he was just showing a little bit more to me that he was coming forward and landing some pretty good shots. I think he just didn't have it in the gas tank that night. He didn't come looking to get into a championship fight. He just didn't have it that night.
I agree, and not that you can't make points on your own, but I want to kind of highlight what you said because it really sticks out to me. I think sometimes when fighters' gas tanks go, we focus less on their performance. We think that they're tired and everything else is sort of out, unless they're doing something super heroic and they're swinging for the fences and you can tell they're doing some movie shit, then we're like, okay, we'll deal with it. But if they're just having a solid performance and we believe they're tired, sometimes you're right. I think their performance gets a little dismissed. All right, Isha, Kelvin Gastelum is basically a legend killer. That's what they call him. He takes out all these studs. He wants a shot at the belt. Do you think this is enough to get him one? A split decision win over Jacare?
I think with that division, it's hard not to argue just because of him being the legend killer. Why not put him in there? Because it seems like we talked about this yesterday. Listen, he doesn't have the physique as other fighters do in that division, right? He comes in a little bit. He looks a little bit heavy. He just doesn't have the look of somebody that's really fit and can do it. But he comes in and he's a legend killer. He brings his A game. He has a chin of steel. And I think with anybody you put him in there, he's going to show up for that fight. And it's going to be an exciting fight. I just hope if it's a 5-rounder and a championship fight, he's in shape to go all 5 rounds.
All right, sounds good. So I'll ask this again of Isha. TJ's excited. He's jumping on everything. I can appreciate that. Isha, do you think Kelvin earned a title shot last night?
I know what I think, but Tone will probably hate me.
What do you think?
See, he's like shaking his head. I think he deserves a title shot. Do I think he would win? No. But I think he deserves it, like I feel like I was going for him. Like I didn't get to see the fight, but just hearing the results, hearing the split decision, I knew it was going to be a close fight. I mean, everything that's gone on with Jacare ever since the UFC gave him 10 Boch. I don't know. I feel like he kind of just had a little bit of bad luck from the running when Luke Rockhold had to basically drop out of the rematch in his fight. And then the UFC kind of overlooked Jacare. But I don't know. He basically just didn't want to sit on the sideline. So he just kept getting these fights. So I feel like, I don't know, ever since that fight, like he's been just kind of showing up. So I knew he would show up for this fight against Gastelum, but I feel like Gastelum's opponents recently, he's just been doing so well. And I just kind of I just feel like he's kind of on a different level right now as far as like Jacare goes. But I mean, I am going to have to go back and like look at the fight. But, as far as moving forward, like if he does fight for the belt, I don't know. I feel he's deserving, but it's just going to have to take a hot second if I really think that, how he compares to that level. But yeah, I don't know.
All right, boys, quick.
I think he should fight, though.
All right, boys, quickly. Tony, yes or no?
No. He's 2 fights removed from getting absolutely just dominated by Chris Weidman. A win over Michael Bisping, who was coming off 4 weeks after getting KO'd by GSP in a split decision over Jacare. Hell no. And part of me, like, even though I scored the fight for Kelvin, part of me wanted him to lose that split decision so he would think about moving back down to where he really belongs, which is welterweight. And, I hope they make him fight. Whitaker, I think there's a lot up in the air still in the middleweight division. But, God, can you imagine Kelvin Gastelum fighting, someone like Yoel Romero? Like, that is just – make him fight Yoel Romero, and that will have him reconsidering this whole 185-pound decision he made, honestly.
You know what, Tony? I agree with you on the premise, but the one thing I will give Kelvin Gastelum is he seems to fight to the level of his competition. I would like to see him fight Yoel Romero too, just to see if that, he seems to rise to the occasion to at least be on equal footing with them.
Anywhere near Chris Weidman's level? I mean, I think the book's out on him. You get him to the mat, and he can't get up off the ground. We saw that in round 1 last night as well. Jacare got him down and got him good. I mean, it's an easy blueprint, and someone like Yoel Romero is just going to have a field day with him.
Yeah,
it's going to be Rory Nate Diaz like on steroids.
He's a little, like you said, he's a little bit, to have an old school term, he's neither like fish nor fowl, meaning he can't make 70 consistently, and he's too small for 85. It's like, what do you do with this guy, right? It's
we need those new weight divisions.
He should be the guy that like, quiet as kept is like advocating for he's tweeting about it. Hey, we should have a 175 division. Yeah. We're not talking about that, He should be the guy advocating for it. All right, Ben, a title shot or not?
No, not a chance.
Okay. Let's move on. Okay, in the latest edition of the UFC's Legends division, Lyoto Machida became the second man to kick Vitor Belfort's jaw into space. So clearly there's a hole in his kick defense. However, he won't have to worry about that because he's closing his career out and hanging him up. Let's start with Ben. How did you react when you saw this kick?
It was ridiculously calm and casual. Like, I was expecting like Makita to go absolutely mental. I mean, maybe it was part respect for Belfort, but I mean, it took me a few seconds to actually register just what happened, because he threw the front kick out on the floor, and Machida still got his hands on his hips as if he's like waiting for Belfort to get to his feet again. It was unbelievable. I don't think anybody quite expected that sort of style of knockout. It was something.
You know, it's interesting. I even tweeted out, I mean, there may not be any more cold-blooded shit that you can do than knock someone dead like that and then bow to him and go to your knees. I was like, that's even more cold-blooded than if you just, like, stood over him and, like, you know, fake pissed, like, Adesanya or, like, climbed the cage. I was like, damn, I would much less have somebody knock me dead and then bow to my ass. It's almost like you're, like, at my funeral. So I was like, man. So we'll move over to Isha. Everyone's calling for Vitor's retirement. Obviously, he did retire. But why is this kick so different than the one Anderson did in February of 2011? I mean, he got knocked out, but I mean, what makes us think he should retire because of the kick and not because he's 2-4 in his last 6? Like, why is the kick so special? Because he's old?
I mean, he's the one that wanted a Legends division, not anyone else. I mean, in my opinion, it is a little bit sad that he did have to go out like that. I mean, the clips are everywhere on Twitter. I feel like I didn't even have to watch the whole fight, even though I will. But, I mean, the kick happened and his head bounced, you know, from the bottom. But I feel like he's been around for so long, and, you know, sometimes you just have to listen to your body. I mean, he did say that he did want a Legends division if he ended up going into Bellator, where, you know, all these old guy fighters can just like all fight each other. But, you know, is he retiring just from the UFC, or is he retiring, you know, from MMA as a whole? You know, there's been a handful of fighters that have proved like age is nothing but a number, apparently. So, you know, why stop there? But then you have to think about like that whole CTE circling around and things like that. So you just never know what someone's reasoning is. But I mean, if he does ends up retiring from fighting 100%, I mean, he's had one hell of a career as far as we all know. So you know, it's just very unfortunate that it had to happen, you know, on home soil. Yeah. But I feel Machida should feel proud of what he did, you know, especially going against a guy like that. So, you know, more power to him. But, you know, whatever Vitor decides to do, I feel he should be happy either way. And, you know.
Well, you know how it goes. Age is nothing but a number for winners. For losers, it's because you're old. It's not because you didn't, you know, train properly or adequately protect yourself. It's because you're old.
Are you calling me old? I'm just kidding.
Vitor Belfort's 2 months older than me, so I'm a 100% calling him old. So, I know exactly what that man goes through. Well, he's been taking a lot more damage than I have. TJ.
I happy birthday over 21, John.
TJ, so listen, we know what they say, right? Fighters don't retire, the cage retires them. So this is what happened to Vitor Belfort. I mean, he hung on too long or whatever. He was always going to be a guy that went out on a sword. What'd you make of the fight?
It hurt a little bit watching it. You know, like, just because we've been watching Vitor for how long? I mean, since he came in, and going in there and he looked a little slow, and it's not the person that, when you think of Vitor, it's not the person that you saw last night when you're imagining him or when you're seeing old fights. That just isn't him. So it hurt a little bit last night watching that, and then watching him catch that kick. It was honestly, I just think it is time to put the gloves in the middle. The cage has caught up to him, and it was bad.
Tony, I'll ask you 2 questions to kind of put an end to this. Number one, as far as Vitor goes, what is his legacy? I mean, is he the phenom that was beating Scott Ferozzo to death? Is he the TRT juiced up guy that was wheel kicking everybody into the first row? Is he this old guy that, you know, goes to media events dressed like one of those old mobsters that's trying to make everybody think he's insane with the robe? Like, what's his legacy here? I mean, when you think of Vitor, you and I talk about Vitor Belfort in 10 years, what are you thinking of? The guy with muscles on muscles or the young guy?
I mean, it's going to be a little bit of both. We're going to remember him as basically two different guys. The guy, that was running through, everybody at one point. I think he had a run where he beat Rumble Johnson, Michael Bisping, Rockhold, Henderson, and his only loss was John Jones. And then that whole, banning TRT thing came up. And, I kind of do advocate for less testing. I'm not really a big USADA fan. But I think Vitor should have left the UFC after. If you know anything about, testosterone, steroids, or anything, his body was going to be messed up after that. I mean, if you're taking testosterone for a while, your body's not going to be able to adjust. Obviously, he's going to be getting tested a lot. He had to take there was like a big 2-year break between the Henderson fight and the Weidman fight, where they gave him the title shot anyway versus Weidman, and he lost. And he's just never looked the same really since then. So I think he should have gone somewhere where they're a little less stringent on stuff like that. Because the man, he's an older guy, and he needed his little bit of juice. So I don't know. I think we're gonna remember him as two different guys, basically the guy before and after that Dan Henderson fight. And as far as Machida goes, that was awesome to see. It's kind of mixed emotions because you hate seeing Vitor go out like that, but then again, it's great to see Machida back. Coming off that very technical, which is code for boring, win over Eric Anders. And I mean, he's on a 2-fight winning streak now. Everybody thought he was done after his initial comeback fight. So he's looking good, man. And I'm excited to see what Lyoto has in store for us late in his career at this point.
I'm going to do a quick little, not even a minute, tribute to Vitor Belfort just because he's always been my favorite fighter. I'll remember him as the guy that ran across the cage and just annihilated Vanderlei Silva. He'll always be that guy to me. I wasn't ever a fan of the TRT and the shitty haircuts. That just wasn't for me. I mean, he was a hell of a fighter during the time, but it was so up in the air as to what the cause was. Is he having a career resurgence, or is he just juiced to the gills, and how could he possibly lose? Everything he does is when Barry Bonds swings a bat. If he hits your head, it's going across the cage because he's just juiced. So I'll remember him as the young guy. I remember the first thing that I ever thought about Vitor Belfort was he just annihilated somebody, and then somebody goes, this guy has a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm like, he just did that to a guy, and he has a black belt. No one's ever going to beat this guy. And then he spent his career only – the big thing that they always say about Vitor is he only ever lost to studs. And I'll give him that. I mean, for the most part, you go down the line, he's only ever really lost to Hall of Famers. So props to him. I hope he enjoys retirement. I hope he has enough money saved up that he doesn't end up in a fight that no one wants to see or, that he feels like he has to do. All right, let's move on to Mackenzie Dern and Amanda Cooper. So this fight had a lot going into it, a lot of controversy. Obviously, Mackenzie Dern was 7 pounds overweight. And we'll get to this in a second, but Dominic Cruz said after the fight, that's the equivalent of cheating, coming into a fight 7 pounds overweight. I understand where he's coming from. That's a pretty bold statement to make. But so I want to get you guys' thoughts on Dern's performance, but also I want to talk a little bit about the 7 pound thing. So try and hit on both. We'll start with Ben. Ben, what'd you think about the way Dern looked?
Looked impressive. I mean, the first fight was sort of striking, very wild. Kind of the same again, but without leaving the chin as open. Obviously showed that she's got power. Whether it's at 7 pounds or not, we'll never know. Landed a flush punch to the chin. Obviously amazing on the mat. We already knew that, but showed that she's somewhat capable on the stand-up. With the weight situation, I've got to agree. It's basically cheating. I'm surprised that Cooper took the fight, to be honest with you. It's not exactly... We've seen it before in the past where it's 1 or 2 pounds. That I can live with. It's hardly a difference. Yeah. When you've got 7 pounds and then you're rehydrating as well, probably. There might have even been a stone difference at come fight night, which is just absolutely absurd.
I really think Cooper missed a huge opportunity. After the fight, she should have said, there's no way that punch drops me if she's 7 pounds less in weight. There's no way. I'd eat that thing 7 pounds less. She had 7 pounds more ass coming at me. So, TJ, what are your thoughts on just how Dern looked? I mean, she threw a bomb, and everyone's saying that bomb is because she's able to feel a little more comfortable on her feet because of the ground game. I mean, is that kind of is that your assessment as well or no?
Well, I'm going to have to go back to the weight cut as well, because, you know, when you're coming into the ring, you're 7 pounds over. So when you lose those 7 pounds, your body becomes dehydrated even more. So you lose a little bit more overall in your body. So when you come in 7 pounds, you hydrate even more. So you're coming in pretty much all healthy. So when you're throwing haymakers and then Cooper catches one, when she is putting her body through hell, yeah, the haymaker, when it catches, it's going to weaken that body a little bit because you're not fully up to speed with like Cooper should have been. You know, I'm going to have to agree too. I think it's a form of cheating, being 7 pounds, but overall, I mean, she's wild. She's a ground game, but she was just throwing wild punches. It doesn't seem she has much control when she's moving around. That's kind of her style that we've seen in the last 2 fights, is just throwing haymakers and hoping she catches one.
Tony, I'll get to you in a second. I want to ask Isha one question, and kind of to go with what TJ said. I think the other thing for me, Isha, is that when I feel like you miss weight by 7 pounds, that's you telling me you don't give a shit about the weight cut. Like you're gonna miss by 7 pounds, not even cutting. You might have just been 7 pounds over. So that tells me that she didn't care. And the other part of it was, for some reason, and explain this to me, Cooper turned herself into this like hero on Twitter, like, I'm going to give this girl what you guys all think she deserves. And really the only person that Mackenzie Dern really screwed over was Cooper. So I don't know who she's saving us from. You know, she's saving us from Mackenzie Dern because like, we don't care as much as you should care. You know, you're the one that should be genuinely bothered by this, Cooper, not us. So, but I just feel like Cooper got too wrapped up in it. Dern didn't care. It was a recipe for what happened, right? Does that make sense, Isha?
I mean, it makes sense, but I don't know. In the real world, it's like when you're kind of one person, like putting in effort, especially like when the end result is a competition, you're putting in the effort and you're kind of expect your opponent on a professional level to also put in the work and make the weight. I mean, Cooper explained exactly how she was just like super emotional and she started crying, mostly out of frustration. But honestly, that is a really fucked up thing to do. And when you're getting to this level, it's like, why are you even coming over like 7 pounds? Like some people are justifying, oh, if it's a pound or two, it's like not that big of a deal. I think if you come overweight in general, it's kind of a big deal. Because it is disrespect to your opponent. I mean, Cooper wanted to take the fight. She said, you know, she didn't want to not take it. She still wants to put a name out for herself, you know, especially if she did win over Dern. And basically, and she said she already did her training, so she just didn't want to let all of that fall to ride. But I mean, you kind of have to hype yourself up a little bit after that situation. She can't just like go in the cage crying, but apparently she was using all of that. I mean, there's some fighters that said some of the best fights come out of hate, if you actually genuinely hate your opponent. So, I mean, you know, she probably just went in there super emotional as if she like hated Dern. I mean, maybe she shouldn't have taken the fight. I mean, as far as Mackenzie Dern's, honestly, like she's missed weight in every single federation that she's fought. So I just don't really understand this whole process. And some people want to see prospects fail, especially how we see they're marketed over others. You know, especially how Tisha Torres and Nina talked about her yesterday or the other day before the fight, just for the division. So I don't know. I just think it's completely unfair. And there's another division that's close to her weight. So I don't really understand why she can't make the move. Like, why is this such a big deal? Like, if you can't make the weight, you can't make the weight. But she was blaming it on like her missing her flight and like not being in, like her basically missing like a full day of training when she like could have cut the weight down. It's just like excuses after excuses. So I mean, I don't know. I don't really care. I used to be a fan. I don't anymore. I don't even care.
Yeah. All right, Tony, Isha hit on a few really big points there. When you're 7 pounds overweight, you're damn near in the next weight class. So that's almost like telling your opponent, hey, you know, you could fight at you know, bantamweight, but I'm going to come in at featherweight. So we'll just do whatever. Fuck it. You know, so my question to you is, Mackenzie Dern doesn't care as much as we want her to, does she?
So it's 7 pounds, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Kelvin Gastelum says, hold my fucking beer. I came in 10 pounds overweight versus Tyron Woodley. Does everybody forgot about that? I don't remember this crazy backlash when he missed weight by 10 pounds. Was there this crazy backlash?
No, there wasn't.
No, there wasn't. So I don't know what's going on here. Still a fan of Dern. I get it. I've been saying from the start, she's a flyweight. I've been chanting it. I don't understand her stubbornness of wanting to be a strawweight. Her excuse before was, well, the UFC doesn't have a flyweight division, therefore I'm going to continue to try to cut down to 115. They now have a flyweight division. What are you doing? Like, their excuses for not moving up just don't make any sense. She said she sparred with a couple bantamweights before, and she thinks the size would be too big of an issue. It's just like, come on, the decision is so obvious. I feel like the UFC should just force her to move up, and maybe they already have. I don't know.
Yeah.
As far as her not caring, who knows? I mean, that's just us guessing. We don't know what she's. We know she's had problems with coaches. She needs to get with a real gym. What she's doing, the way she prepared for this fight, isn't going to work out for her in the long term. Obviously MMA Lab, very respected. It just didn't work out. She needs to get with another big camp as soon as possible if she wants to be successful. And she needs to train with other girls around, her size. Places. There's plenty of places like that out there now. There used to not be. The women used to have trouble finding gyms. Now there's plenty of places that have rosters of plenty of UFC, Bellator girls on them. So go find a gym where you can go train with other girls around your size, and work this thing out. And also move to fucking flyweight. It's not that hard. Like, the division is there. The choice is obvious. And as far as like the whole knockout thing, she swings for the fences in all of her fights that I've ever seen. And Cooper just happened to be one of the ones that got caught on the chin. Do I really think she wouldn't have gotten dropped, if the weight was any different? I think it probably would have played out the same. I don't think, I don't think the punch, was affected that much by the weight cut or anything.
Well, I was going to mention, I feel the UFC should do something about that because, I mean, if they're going to book her against another fighter, like, wouldn't they be worried? Like, not every fighter is going to take, the fight when it's just 30%. Like, some people are saying I would have even asked for 50%. I mean, are they going to risk?
20.
Yeah.
20 goes to the fighter. The 10 goes to the commission.
Okay, but some of the strawweights were getting asked questions like how much they would ask, like would they actually go in and fight for 30? Because I guess it was like originally 20 and then it moved up to 30. But yeah, you're totally right. But I feel like the UFC like has to do something because it's like kind of a Ferguson Khabib, like are they going to book it? Like are each of these fighters like actually going to make it onto the scale? So not every fighter is going to agree the same way Amanda Cooper agreed. She had her personal reasons how she took the fight, and then like, look what happened. It's rather unfortunate. But at the end of the day, like not all the fighters are going to take that. Is she still a prospect that they want to keep marketing and putting on the main card? I mean, it's kind of like a catch-22. I feel like that's my magic word and I say it all the time, but like, they can put her on the main card and risk all of these things, but is she actually going to make weight? So you saying that the UFC should most likely enforce her to move into a flyweight division is probably the best. But are they like, I mean, I'm not saying that they're not allowed to do that, but is that like a thing? Because I know this isn't the first instance that we have run into a problem, but this is like a reoccurring thing. So I feel like there should be some punishment there instead of just giving like a certain percentage to your purse and like everyone else just moves on and nothing happens. Because at the same time, she is winning fights. So yeah,
there's definitely a precedent there. I mean, that's why Gastelum is at 185 right now.
Right. Well, and if she was less marketable, she'd just get cut like Yair Rodriguez. They would do something. They would take a big step, but they want to want to move forward with her as a somebody they can.
Obviously, super marketable. Super marketable.
Yeah. So so a couple of things you guys said there that I find interesting is how you said that Tony, that she says the bantamweights, there's an issue with size when she's with them. Well, guess what? There's an issue with size when these strawweights are with you because you don't want to make the weight. So come on, let's move to where you should be and not just do the thing that's most advantageous to you. I understand that we're all going to try and figure out what's best for our career and sort of angle things in a way, but you got to just say, hey, if I can't make this weight, And there's just simple body chemistry. I mean, if you look at the girl, she's too caked up to make 115, man. There's too much going on there. There's too much happening in places for her to even dream about 115. So that's just the way I look at it, and if without severely affecting her physically. So all right, let's move on. Back to Bellator. The two, we're gonna finish the podcast and then hit our features at the end. But Paul Daly and John Fitch, the Aaron Pico Morrison fight. We'll just kind of wrap all this into one thing. The thing that impressed me about what Pico said, because obviously that was a more impressive performance than what I saw with Daly and Fitch. Daly was pretty impressive, but we'll get to that in a second. Pico said that I guess someone had said he couldn't finish with a body shot, and he finished with a body shot. So, Tony, I mean, is this kid starting to become what we thought he was going to become? And maybe we rushed to judgment a little bit. Now, quietly, a little bit under the radar, he's developing into who is Aaron Pico who we thought he was?
Yeah, I think he is. He always has been. I mean, I'm trying to think of an analogy that would make sense, but I mean, his resume and just his upbringing and everything he accomplished as a kid is equal to, God, I really don't know. It'd be like that stud kid who could throw 101 mile per hour fastball and also was the quarterback and also, played like 3 other sports and was just like, he's that guy. He's that kind of, just transcendent talent, I guess. With everything he did growing up, he's like built to be the perfect MMA fighter. The matchmaking,
which means that there's no way he can be the perfect MMA fighter, right?
Exactly. He's like the new Vitor Belfort, basically. I don't know.
He's like the kid from the old days, Marinovich, whose dad grew him up to be if that actually worked. Like if his dad actually turned him into the person he wanted him to be. That's kind of what Pico has been. Let me swing it over to you. This kid's talking about boxing too. I mean, the old saying: if you have a plan B, then plan A doesn't work. The only way plan A works is no plan B. Should he just focus on Bellator and MMA, or should he kind of split double duty? Does that make him more marketable by being the only kid who's kind of successfully doing that? What do you think he do?
It's probably taken a bit of inspiration from Michael Venom Page, isn't he? I mean, I know he did the same. Probably got a career high payday from that. I mean, the money in boxing is just so bigger than MMA. If you make it to the top level, that is. So I think he just needs to decide now. I mean, obviously he's got plenty of time. So, but I think for now he should just focus on MMA. It's going well. Maybe try for that rematch, avenge a loss, put yourself in the window even more.
I think Bellator's looking to get into boxing though. Is a big part of that.
Mm-hmm.
They're definitely trying to get into boxing.
So then,
and he was Golden Gloves champ.
Yeah, that's true. TJ, let me ask you this about Aaron Pico. Look into your crystal ball. 10 years from now, is Aaron Pico a UFC champ? Is he a boxing champ? Is he a washout? Is he is both of them going to create a problem? What do you think when Aaron Pico's 30 years old? Who is Aaron Pico?
He's definitely a champ. I think it says a lot about him. When he took that first loss and then he came back, you could tell he really worked on his game, that he didn't like that. So that's kind of an eye of a champion, that you kind of get embarrassed on your first fight, and that's not going to happen again. And what we've seen now is him really step up his game and want to be a champion. And I think that's what's going to, 10 years from now, we'll see him. And if he does want to go to boxing, if they do change it over, Bellator wants to get in the boxing game, the kid's young, he's marketable. It would be easy for him to cross over. But definitely 10 years from now, you're going to see him remember him as a good champion.
TJ, I was under the impression that when you're a champion and you lose, you're supposed to cover yourself with a hoodie, go through the airport, and not tell anyone to talk about your fighting career. Is that not correct? Did I read that wrong when Rousey did that? Isha,
and it's a gift if we get to talk to you, right?
Right.
It's a gift.
Yeah, it is. It's a privilege. Yes. Isha, you were there. How did the crowd react to Aaron Pico? Does anybody care? Do they know who he is? Does he get a big pop when he comes out? Is he as marketable with somebody's cousin as he is with us?
Everyone loved it. I mean, the cheers were roaring. He ran around. He jumped on top of the cage and was cheering. It was just honestly a really good moment. And then in the post-fight interview, he was basically there and confirmed that he did have interest, really high interest actually, to move over to boxing. It more so sounded like that was actually a plan on his timeline. But then, he basically came out of the fight with no injuries and said that he's pretty much cleared. So even if Bellator wanted to put him on the Bellator 200 card, he would be more than happy to be on that card and he would be ready. So that's something that's really exciting. But he did say, you know, before he moves over to boxing, indefinitely in a sense, his main focus right now is to be a world champion.
Yo,
in MMA.
Shout out to his gym though, Team Body Shop. I mean, they're like taking over Bellator. They got AJ McKee, I think Baby Slice, Jordan. What is Anthony Pretty Boy Taylor? But he's not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They got a lot of good fighters, and I think that's the perfect gym for him as well.
And I like a guy like Pico. You know the old saying, you know, a rising tide lifts all boats. It seems like you said, Pico's got this gym that's kind of like under the radar, but now, you know, he's having his moment. He's bringing the gym with him. I think that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So guys, let's talk real quick about Paul Daly and John Fitch. For an MMA fight, Paul Daly and John Fitch makes a hell of a poster. I don't know how great of a fight it is. The poster's cool.
Oh,
makes you think you might want to see it, and then they fight and you're like, probably maybe I shouldn't have given too much of a shit about that fight, because clearly they didn't either. So what do we think about this fight? I'll start with Tony, because you're giving me the nonverbal.
I mean, we all knew what was going to happen. John Fitch was going to Fitch him, and he did. The only brief moment of action was when the fans forced a stand-up, and we got a flurry at the end of the first round from Paul Daly. I'm not even sure how Fitch survived that. He looked like he got hurt pretty bad. And then, of course, the third round, where Paul Daly called out. I thought he was calling out Fitch, but it turns out he was calling out Bellator themselves, saying this is going to get you millions of fans, guys, with John Fitch laying on top of him doing the thing. That was hilarious to me. But there's no denying how good John Fitch is. But at the same time, God damn, how do you market somebody like that? It's just so hard to do.
Yeah, so Ben, listen, John Fitch is good enough that Fitch is pretty much a verb now. You know, you can Fitch someone. So, but so is sleep. So what are your thoughts on John Fitch? And I mean, all these guys are putting this, you can't not pay John Fitch, right? You bring him in, he's got to make some money. You're not going to throw him $10,000. He's going to look at you like you're crazy. But at the same time, is he worth more than that? It's weird.
No, I mean, the fight was only going to go one of two ways, wasn't it? Either Fitch was going to get bitch slapped, or Daly was going to get Fitch sapped, and the latter happened. So Fitch just laid on him for like the majority of the fight, and just not even looking for attacks on the floor. But as Tony said, how do you really market a guy like that? What footage clips and rewinds are you going to post as Bellator MMA on Twitter that are going to be like, oh shit, yeah, I want to see that again? Like, there's really nothing you can show to convince people to tune in for that, is there really?
And God bless him, he doesn't even have like a strong, like powerful, explosive double leg. He just kind of just grabs you, and then you just both end up on the ground. It's not even like, you can't even just do like a gif of the takedown where you're like, look at this guy. You know, he's TJ. I mean, what are we gonna? Oh, first of all, before we go any further, I'm giving Ben 100% credit for coining the term "Fitch slapped." And if I hear that anywhere else, I will tell them Ben Smith had it first. Unless he didn't, I don't know of. TJ,
like actually
this guy, right? I mean,
First, can I ask permission to use that Fitch slap, please? Because that was a good one. I like that. So where does it go now? I don't know. I'm with agreement with everybody. You can't market somebody like that. It just, you know what you're going to get. He's right. It's one or two ways. He was going to get slapped, or it was going to be on the ground the whole time. So I don't know what you got to do. You got to be super creative with Fitch. And I don't know what that creativity is going to bring. Or who you put in the ring with him, because it's just going to be the same thing unless you hold a wrestling tournament. I don't know, but it's the same thing. We know what John Fitch brings to the cage. We know what he brings to the cage. So when you bring that guy into Bellator, you know what you're going to get. So the best thing you can do is match him up to somebody that's going to grapple really good and that's going to be on the ground with him.
Yeah, I met John Fitch before. I was there the night he won the 170-pound title at World Series of Fighting. He's a great guy, but I will say this. God bless someone who can double down on the fact that they're a boring fighter by also being a labor problem. He's like, not only am I not going to make you any money as a fighter, I'm going to try and get you to pay other fighters more. Like, he's the worst possible approach to a career. He's like, not only am I going to piss off my bosses, I'll piss off fans. How many people can I piss off? So, but yeah, he's a hell of a guy, nice dude, and he's certainly fighting the good fight. It's just not doing him any good. All right, let's get out of here in a rush. Let's finish up with trending up and down. We'll do trending up first. I'll hit everybody. Tell me who you think on the heels of this night is trending up. And Isha, who's trending up?
Amber Leibrock, just saying. She ended up winning her Bellator debut against Janae Harding. It was a really, really, really amazing fight. And Janae was making her Bellator debut as well. They were the only women on the card showcase, featherweights. And just her interview actually went really well too. And she basically wanted to prove that this was the fight that was going to put featherweights on the map. And to be honest, I really think they did, because the UFC has nothing to show for it as far as, a couple of fighters. So I think they did an amazing job, and I'm just, super proud. And I'm just curious what's going to happen next with her.
All right, props to Isha for both answering that question brilliantly and somewhat promoting her own interview that she just did with Amber. So great job.
See what I did there?
Yeah, you got to check. Yeah, check both boxes. Perfect. Tony, who's trending up?
I think John Lineker is trending up. Great bounce back for after that TJ Dillashaw loss. It's really, besides the Ali Bagatanov loss, early in his career and his debut. I mean, the guy's beating everyone put in front of him, and he's right back in that 135, title contention. I think 135 is right behind lightweight and featherweight as far as the most stacked divisions in the UFC. So props to him, and looking forward to seeing where his career goes from here.
Ben, who's trending up?
Far from a prospect, but Cheat Congo. Guy was saying it's boring. He had 5 wins in a row before last night, and people saying, "Oh yeah, wins," but he's doing it really boring. He's sort of like grueling matches. Knocked a guy clean out. 6 wins in a row now, 42 years old. You can't really ask much more of anyone than that.
TJ, who's trending up?
Let's step out here. I became an Aaron Pico fan last night, so I'm going to say Aaron Pico. And the reason I say that, he says all the right things. His interview, he's calm, he's collected. He's a young kid. But not only that, he's definitely marketable to different boxing, MMA. You could really use that kid and step it up, especially with his personality. I think you take that for a ride as well, and you go with him.
And I'll stick with you, TJ, on trending down. Who do you think's trending down?
Mackenzie Dern. I'm going to go with that. When you bring somebody that comes from that kind of background, the father's great. You're supposed to live up to these expectations. You're a championship family. And then when you come in and look at 7 pounds overweight, it doesn't seem like you're taking it serious. I definitely think she's trending down.
Ben, who's trending down?
Not someone we've mentioned again, but I'll go with Junior Albini. Heavyweight, really in need prospects. Everyone was hoping he was the guy. Olenek somehow pulls off another Ezekiel choke. derails another hype train.
Tony, who's trending down?
I'm going to go with the guy who won a fight but lost a lot of fans, and John Fitch. I think he's trending down. To get clowned on. I mean, the most memorable, the thing everybody is going to remember about his win is Paul Daly booing him from the bottom of the canvas. So I'm going to have to put him at the trending down for that. That's a massive L. You just took an L. Sorry.
Isha, who's trending down?
Well, I would say Mackenzie Dern, but I think I'm going to go with Paul Daly because the fight, I mean, it was very boring. I mean, I'm not going to just blame John Finch. Like, it was both of them. And apparently Paul Daly was telling the ref inside of the cage to stand them up. So he was basically being very verbal and kind of not doing anything in the fight. So And I also think the whole beef with him and Michael Venom Page and how he just wanted to fight him and that kind of went downhill. It's just, I don't know, it's not really exciting to me anymore. So, yeah, Daly.
So for me, I'll say trending up is Ryan Bader. Ryan Bader has an opportunity if Fedor Emelianenko gets through Chael Sonnen to beat Fedor, win the heavyweight Grand Prix while he's the current light heavyweight champion. So I really like his chances. I mean, either he gets to fight Fedor with everything that comes with that, and it's a diminished Fedor, or he gets to fight Chael Sonnen, who he'd be a huge favorite against. So I think Ryan Bader is trending up. Trending down is Raquel Pennington's corner. I think that they really did a disservice to her last night. I think people have posted today like what Trevor Whitman did in the Nate Marquardt fight. I think that when your fighter looks at you and says, I'm done, what else do you need? That's not the time for a pep talk. When she says I'm done 8 times, she's done. And then if you throw in the towel, then figure out, say, listen, sweetheart, you said it 8 times. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to have you keep fighting? And then she goes out and gets knocked out. I mean, because of course she did. So, yeah, that's who I got. All right, I'm going to start the not for nothings off. My not for nothing is this. Not for nothing, I would much rather see what's going on at a UFC inside the cage, but I'll be damned if I wouldn't want to see what's going on in a Bellator cage outside the cage. They got Nate Diaz there, 50 Cent's there. Like it's popping off outside a Bellator cage. So I'd much rather watch the product inside of a UFC cage. And this is no disrespect to the card last night, but outside the Bellator cage is I think I'm too old to say the word lit, but if I wasn't, that's what I would say.
I'll say it for you. It's okay.
I appreciate that. Isha, not for nothing, but
I'm trying to understand the comparison. But if I do have to say, because I did experience that, it would probably be exactly like yours. I thought the party was more outside rather in the cage. The cage was definitely for my entertainment and it was very fun, but it's just a completely different experience just being right there and kind of, I mean, I was watching fights with 50 Cent and I don't know, not a lot of people can say that. Oh, and they were playing his music all night, so that was really weird too, and he was kind of like rocking with it, so yeah. That would be my
Did everybody sort of look at him like, do you want to go ahead and maybe grab a mic or so? Chris Rock said one time, anywhere he goes where there's a mic, people expect him to perform. Like he said I was in a funeral one time, I was awake, and everybody just keeps looking at the microphone like, you gonna do a couple of minutes? Wait.
Well,
I'm not gonna do it.
Well, in the post interview, someone asked Scott Coker, like, because 50 Cent was there and they thought like, you know, there was going to be this huge announcement. So they were kind of saying like, what is going on with him? And then he brought in like, oh, well, hopefully he comes out with a new album. But then he also said he has no idea how the information of him fighting or signing a 3-fight contract, like, ended up happening. He was like, someone ended up just making that up. But he did say that 50 Cent also is going to be in London. So I think there is going to be some promotion there. And 50 Cent has been posting about it too. And once again, he's been talking to a lot of people. So I think he is going to actually get involved with it, just from the sound, but I don't think he's going to fight.
All right, well, we'll move on to Tone, but I'll do a little mini not for nothing. Not for nothing, but you don't make the big announcement at UFC 199. You make it at Bellator 199. You make it at Bellator 200. So if anything's going to happen, you'll be there. Tony, not for nothing, but.
I also am a little confused, but I'll go with Nick getting the Ezekiel choke for God. I don't even know how many times he's pulled.
11th time, I think it was.
How many times?
I think that was the 11th.
11th time. That is insane. Props to him living up to that nickname, the boa constrictor. I mean, the guy is just made of something else. 40 years old. Got damn near 70 fights on his record. Like, what an underground legend, man. This guy is something else. Props to him. I hope we see many more Ezekiel chokes.
Ben, not for nothing, but.
Not for nothing, but if you hate Amanda Nunes, then you must really be a psychopath. How you can knock people out of that just constantly, and then invite the partners into the cage and offer them drinks. That is a different level to sportsmanship.
That's true. Yeah, she did a lot. She did a lot for herself last night. I think she handled herself very well in all aspects of the fight. TJ, not for nothing, but.
Don't remember Vitor as you did last night. If you're a new fan to MMA, definitely go check him out, his early fights, because that's not who he is. That's not who we want to remember. So not for nothing. Go check out Vitor. Don't remember him like that with the face kick.
All right, there you have it. That's the Sunday Morning Cornerman for this week. It was UFC 224 and Bellator 189. Thanks to the entire panel. It was a big one. Up next, we will be – what's the next big fight? What do we have next on the docket?
Oh, Usman.
Or just the card?
What's that?
Oh, you mean like what's next? Like next round?
What's our next big fight coming up?
Usman versus
Damian Maia.
Usman versus Damian Maia. We'll check that out. We'll bring you all the relevant fights and all the relevant talk from that as well. My thanks to Isha Chanel, Tony Fagnano, Ben Smith, TJ Craig. I'm John Franklin. This has been the Sunday Morning Cornerman. See, you know what I'm gonna do? What we used to do, TJ, end it the way we used to end it. From here on out, keep your chin down and your gloves up. The Sunday Morning Cornerman. Peace. All right, guys.